Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Getting in a college coach conversation. We are turning now to our finance experts, and we've got Laurie Peltier once again back on the show. Hey Laurie, how you doing?
Hi, Ian. I'm doing great. Thanks.
Great. Do you request that you only come on the show when I host? It feels like I've always getting you, which is fantastic.
Yes, only you, Ian.
Love it. All right, great. We won't tell Sally and Beth. I don't know if they listen to the show. They don't have to listen. But so it is end of May, but next month, June, is Pride Month, starting June 1st all the way to the 30th. And we thought it would be a great opportunity for us to open up our finance conversation for the month in talking a little bit about potential scholarships that might be available for members of the LGBTQ plus community. And I suppose that Laurie, I must confess, like this isn't something that I necessarily had thought about before, but I don't know that there would be a reason that these scholarships wouldn't exist. So what is out there for students who might identify with that community?
There actually are quite a few scholarships out there. As I started digging around, preparing for today, I had known about a few, but as I looked, there's more and more, and I think more and more being added every day. Everything from regionally based ones based on the student's state or city that they live in, to national ones for students all across the country. And some I found were even for specific colleges. So if you get this scholarship, you can use it at a choice of 3 or 4 colleges that are affiliated with this scholarship. On average, they range from about $2,000 to $5,000. So they're not going to cover the
Nice.
full tuition, but it's a good chunk of money. And some of them are based on honoring someone's memory, like the Matthew Shepard Scholarship.
Mhm.
Others were based on students going into business. There is a National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Didn't know about that. And
That's
so they're
cool.
looking to expand their economic opportunities for LGBTQ students. There's one for students going into journalism. There's another one for teachers, because these organizations have realized that they need representation,
Mhm.
and they want to cover everything. One of the saddest ones that I saw was for students whose parents have cut them off since they've come out, so that they have no resources for college and have a lot of financial need. So it really varies what the requirements are, what the scholarships are for.
Yeah, that's obviously quite sad. And
Mhm.
my initial thought on this also was around, first for applying for scholarships. I mean, there are many situations where students in high school may not be out to their family, might be in
Mhm.
situations where it could be, financially, personally problematic to come out because their parents would cut them off. What is the sort of the role of parents in terms of applying for these scholarships? Can students do it without um, parents being involved in it in any way, or is there, some sort of an adult who needs to be connected to the scholarship process?
That's a good question. I think that a student could do it without their parental involvement. Some of them that are based on financial need, they might need numbers off their FAFSA form.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the parent might make a lot of money, but if they're not going to support the student, then it kind of doesn't work that way. What I was seeing for essays in regards to these scholarships, I'm going to read one here that kind of encompasses what I was seeing across the board. Was, how has your LGBTQ plus identity impacted your life at home, school, or in your community? What, if any, challenges have you encountered as a result of these experiences, and how have you chosen to face these challenges? So that kind of was an underlying theme for the essay requirements. But I think overall, the rest of the information is similar to other scholarship applications:
Right.
letters of recommendations, GPA, maybe their transcript, things like that.
Well, you can often find that there are, we've talked on the show before, there are, I think, billions of dollars worth of scholarship money that's out there, and they are attached to all different kinds of identities, interests, areas of curiosity. How can students find these? I mean, I suppose that this is one of those areas that, like applying for a scholarship for your race or ethnicity, cultural background, are really core. to individuals. Unfortunately, it has to be something more of a sensitive subject in some communities, and wish it weren't that way. But how do students go about looking for things like this? Do they just use the typical scholarship databases? Do they have to go to some other providers or resources in order to track these down? How did you find all of the content that you've discovered for today?
So yes, a regular national search using like scholarships.com is one search engine. There's a couple different viable search engines that are free of charge for students to use that will prompt the students for questions about their identity, and they can answer those questions, and then these scholarships would come up. Others, you can also look at national organizations like the Point Foundation is a very large organization for this community that has a lot of information on it and resources. PFLAG is another one. It stands for Pride Flag, but the website is just PFLAG, and they have chapters all across the country that will sponsor their own scholarships for students in that geographic area. Live Out Loud is another one, and the League Foundation. There's also the Stonewall Community Foundation. So when you start to think about these national organizations that are representing the LGBTQ plus community, or advocating for them, or advocating for human rights, thinking about support groups that the student might belong to, different things like that. It's kind of trying to think outside the box and turn over every stone to identify different resources. And what I was finding is once you find one website, there are links on it to other websites, and that you kind of go down the rabbit hole. But there is a lot out there that students can find.
Now, you mentioned that for some of these scholarships, you've also found that there are other qualifying factors. Now, of course, if you're going to apply for an LGBTQ plus scholarship, you'll want to identify with that community in some regard or another. Do you find that essays are almost always a part of these scholarships for students to tell their story?
From what I've seen, yes, essays are always required. And one thing about qualifying, being a member of this community, you might not be a member of the community, but you'd be a big advocate for it. So students who are, very active in their high school for human rights all across the board, they could apply for some of these. It's how are you being an advocate for this community?
Yeah, there are many chapters of the Gay Straight Alliance all across high schools where this could be if you've been a member, you've been a president of that, a leader in that space across your high school career, even if you don't identify, there may be some allyship opportunities there. That's a great reminder, Laurie.
Yes.
But you also mentioned that there is potentially the additional expectation around grade point average, potentially scores. Are there intersecting, criteria here that, you belong to this identity group, but then you also have at least a 3.5? Is that common or less common?
I would say they are either you belong to this community and you have financial need, or you belong to this community and you have a GPA of 3.0 or 3.5 or higher.
Okay. Gotcha.
It kind of goes either way.
So typically some intersecting either need or merit-based to simplify scholarships here, even though they are not necessarily affiliated with university, they're outside scholarships. But you mentioned that there are some that you actually see that are affiliated directly with colleges. What are some examples there?
And that was with the PFLAG. They have chapters all across the country, and within your chapter of your geographic region, they could be used at certain scholarships. So they've partnered with different colleges within their area.
I see. So the idea there is that maybe you've got alumni who are members of that chapter who've contributed to a scholarship for that particular college, or it's in their local community. And so they want those dollars to go to that university, but they're also supporting. Okay. Very interesting.
And one other thing, Ian, is the scholarships from the college. They might not say that it's specifically for a student from this community, but a college would have scholarships based on leadership, based on community involvement, based on overcoming adversity, and students might qualify that way.
And I think it's actually a really great reminder, because there are many circumstances where students will ask questions about whether it's okay to share in their main personal essay about these aspects of their identity. Maybe they're uncomfortable sharing it. Maybe they think that it is, sometimes students think it's too obvious, right? Like this is a cliche essay. And I often want to tell students, look, if this is a really important part of the story that you need to tell, then we got to figure out a way for you to write that essay that tells that story. But I think this is a great reminder that students should embrace those aspects of their identity, both with respect to the scholarships and also with the application. I also think it's a great reminder to look for communities where you will be supported and welcomed and have the opportunity to, connect not just at the school, but also in the broader community. It sounds like PFLAG is a great way of seeing what that kind of representation looks like.
Exactly.
Are there any other tips that you have for students and families who are in this space that you want to make sure that they're aware of?
I would say start looking early. I know I say that every time, as early as
That's the Laurie
sophomore.
recommendation right there. Yep.
Sophomore year in high school is a good time to start if you feel comfortable. Still apply for financial aid because these, although they can be generous, they're not going to cover the whole cost of college. So still plan on need-based aid and scholarships based on other criteria. But this is a great opportunity that you might want to take advantage of.
That's right. Don't say no to opportunities to get some money. They're, these are great opportunities. Every little bit helps. And so I think if you've got an hour and you're going to spend that time on TikTok, just take that hour and go research some of the websites that Laurie talked about here today. You might be able to stumble into, $2,000, $5,000 to support your higher education.
Exactly.
Thanks, Laurie. That's really great. And it's awesome to be reminded that so many scholarships are out there for students.
Yes.
All right. That does it. That does it for today's show. We are going to be back again next week to talk about creating the activities list for the Common App. It is time to start putting your application materials together. And then we'll also do an overview of all the different rounds of admission, from rolling to early to regular decision and more. We will also talk about securing your financing for the upcoming academic year. So that's a big topic. Obviously, if you're a senior, you might be celebrating the fact that you're heading off to college in the fall, but let's make sure you've got everything you need in order to pay for it. Until then, we hope you have a wonderful end to May. Congratulations to all of you seniors who are graduating this year. That's a wonderful milestone to have achieved, and I hope you're celebrating with your family. From Laurie and me and all the rest of us at College Coach, have a wonderful weekend over Memorial Day, and we'll talk on the other side.